His crypto position crashed to zero and he shrugged it off. Not real money anyway. The other 90% of his savings, sitting in Turkish stocks, was dying in the exact same storm, and he never noticed the two disasters were connected. Same man, same bank account. Two completely different sets of rules. Call him Ahmet, a composite of thousands of investors who quietly split their money into categories that don't exist anywhere except inside their own head. His salary and savings lived in one mental drawer marked safe. His bonus check landed in a different drawer marked free money, and from that drawer, he bought a cryptocurrency he'd never researched. He wasn't reckless. He held a steady job, checked his portfolio monthly, read the financial news out of habit. But his brain never treated money as one number. It treated it as four separate ones. Salary and savings in one box, bonus cash in another, local stocks in a third, foreign markets in a fourth he almost never opened. Economists have a name for this: mental accounting, a concept Richard Thaler formalized in the 1980s. It sounds harmless. It isn't. The instant you draw a line inside your own finances, you start making choices that would look insane if you saw the full picture at once. By 2018, the Turkish lira was collapsing against the US dollar, and Ahmet's safe local portfolio went down with it. The lira lost close to 40% of its value that year. Shop prices that used to feel fixed started changing week to week. In lira terms, his stocks actually held up better than the currency did. Turkish companies are used to running on shaky ground. But measured in the currency his global bank app and his global anxieties both ran on dollars, the two losses told the exact same story: down, hard, together. A globally diversified investor would have owned assets that rose as the lira fell, some counterweight, somewhere. Ahmed owned none. His invisible border, foreign markets are too complicated, meant nothing in his portfolio was built to survive a Turkish-only storm. He didn't sell when the crypto position started crashing. He waited, anchored to a price he remembered from months earlier, the number that still felt like the real value in his head. That price became a finish line he refused to move. This is anchoring. The brain latches onto an early reference point and prices everything later as cheap or expensive relative to that ghost number, never against current reality. Ahmet held on for 6 more months, waiting for a price that never came back. The position eventually lost more than 70% of its value. Money that, categories aside, was still. The damage didn't arrive as one bad year and then stop. It compounded. Between the crypto loss and the currency-driven stock decline, Ahmet's combined losses were large enough to erase years of saving, the kind of hole that takes most people the better part of a decade to climb out of. He never fully diversified afterward either. His portfolio looked almost identical 5 years later. Same local concentration, same reluctance to look abroad. That kind of stuckness has a name too: status quo bias, and it might be the most expensive one of the four because it guarantees the first mistake gets a second try at you. Had he simply treated his money as one connected pool from the start, moderate diversification alone would have offset most of the currency shock. None of this is unique to Ahmet or to Turkey. French and Poterba's 1991 research found that American investors kept over 90% of their equity holdings in domestic stocks at a time when the US made up less than half of global market value. Surveys since have found the same habit alive and well. Most investors in most countries still keep the large majority of their portfolio at home. The instinct runs the other direction too, and it's just as costly. In the 1997 Asian financial crisis, investors had folded Thailand, Indonesia, and South Korea into a single mental category: Asian tigers, treating three different economies as one bet. When Thailand's currency broke in July, capital fled all three at once, even though Indonesia and South Korea weren't standing on the same ground Thailand was. Wrong border, wrong direction. That time, investors erased distinctions that actually mattered instead of inventing ones that didn't. Draw a wall where there's no real risk, or erase a wall where there is. Either way, the category does the thinking a careful look at the numbers should have done. The same instinct is quietly rebuilding itself right now, inside every budgeting app on your phone. What gets marketed as a clever savings trick, separate buckets for travel, retirement, fun money, recreates the exact borders that helped sink Ahmet's portfolio. Users get to label money safe or play with a single tap, and the app calls that empowerment. Quietly Broke exists for stories like this one, the ones where the real cost was never the market, it was the story people told themselves about it. You've probably run a version of this experiment yourself, telling your treat yourself fund it doesn't count against your real budget. It does. It always did. Naming a category doesn't change what your bank account actually owes you. There's a simple way to catch yourself doing this. Take any two amounts sitting in your accounts right now and ask one question. If both of them vanished overnight, would the pain feel equal? If the answer is no, you've just found a border. That's not automatically a mistake. An emergency fund probably should feel more precious than a night out budget. But run the same test on your investment specifically. Does your safe portfolio and your fund portfolio share any real world risk? The same currency, the same country, the same industry? If they do, that's one bet, not two, no matter which drawer you filed it under, and at least now you know the wall is there instead of discovering it during a crisis the way Ahmet did. Here's the part nobody says out loud about money. The borders you draw don't just cost you cash, they cost you clarity. Ahmet's real mistake wasn't recklessness. He believed safe money and risky money were made of different material when they were always the same dollar wearing different labels. Every category feels like protection. Most of the time, it's just a story your brain tells you so a loss feels smaller than it actually is, and catching that story while it's still being told is worth more than any new spreadsheet tab or savings bucket ever will be. So open whatever app you use to track your money, and count the invisible borders you've built without meaning to. If you want more stories like this one, where the real cost was never the market but the story we told ourselves about it, subscribe. Tell me in the comments, what's one safe category in your own budget that isn't actually safe at all? And send this to the person who swears their travel fund and their emergency fund are two completely different things. This video is for general educational and entertainment purposes only. It is not financial advice.